We're here today on our Evil Elvis episode, and I'm sitting here with Nudia.
Hello.
And we're starting with our movie reviews, which actually isn't a whole movie review, as you know, if you've listened to any of our previous podcasts, but we're actually only reviewing trailers because we're really busy people and we don't have time to go watch the whole damn movie. But on our Facebook page, we'll give you connections and links and ways to see these things. Our first film today is Bubba Hotep with Bruce Campbell. And I just love that guy. I love everything he's in. I have a huge crush on him. I'm sorry. I'm not that kind of woman. Like, really? I'm not. But damn, I would, if I got to meet him face to face, I would have a hard time. I'm not just having a meltdown.
Speaking, yes.
Yeah. So Bubba Hotep, he's not sexy in this one at all, but I just love him. So I have to admit I've seen the film, but it's been many, many years. And so I watched the trailer and I love the trailer. Ozzie Davis is in it. There's I don't know her name. I'm terrible. I don't do my homework. But she's been in some recent films and really become a top actress.
More famous, yeah.
But I love the film. I love the premise of it, of him being an Elvis impersonator, and then he breaks a hip falling off stage, and then he's in a nursing home, and then this
weird
like
things
zombie
happen.
creatures start coming in, and he has to kind of save the world in a way.
There you go. Yes, yeah. He's turned to be kind of like the savior of the world or something. Yeah. It's really interesting. I got everything. I got the hint of the whole movie through the trailer. I haven't watched the movie.
Okay.
So all you are saying is exactly portrayed in the trailer, and I think it got me into it. It got me in a way that I now want to watch the movie.
Yes.
And it gets to be scary even.
A little
just
bit.
For the trailer.
Sure. Yeah. There's some spooky stuff.
Yes, there you go.
You know, the costuming is great. Yes. The soundtrack, the makeup, the DOP. You know, the photography. It's just really well done.
Yes, it is.
It's really fun. It's tongue in cheek. And I think that Bruce Campbell is like the king of knowing how to laugh at himself. And honestly, I guess that's why he's my hero, because I look at who I want to emulate in life, who I want to be, and he would be one of them. He's one of those people. So I totally give Bubba Hotep a thumbs up.
Yes.
The next film, I started with the good one because
I agree.
And honestly, I don't know. You know how you make choices and then later you say, why was I thinking that? Honestly, I don't know why I chose this film for the Evil Elvis episode. It's Rockabilly Vampire. And again, we're going to put our links on our Facebook page, Jackie's Hand of Horror.
Justify that is because Rockabilly, which is one of the genres for Elvis. And, and the guys look, at least the trailer, I haven't watched the movie, but the guys looked like the look that Elvis had in the 50s and 60s.
I can guarantee you I'm not going to watch this
film. No, I won't watch it either.
It's like the trailer is like an 80s MTV
musical
video.
But a musical movie.
But a really bad one. I mean, there's some really good ones.
Poorly produced.
Yes.
Yeah.
But the whole trailer is basically a music video, so that you actually have absolutely no idea what the film is about.
What is going on.
Or any interest in watching it. So
unfortunately,
they didn't do any favors for themselves.
Exactly the same happened to me.
Rockabilly Vampire. Don't bother. Thumbs
or
down.
we dare you.
Totally thumbs down. All right. And that's it on our movie trailers today. Hey, so for the four-finger idea on Jackie's Hand of Horror today, I thought of a number of things, but I think that Elvis capes aren't that useful, and most of us don't need anything else cluttering up our closets. For the rare occasion, we might need an Elvis cape. Elvis dog costumes, kind of outdated, again, and hard to explain on audio. So I kind of went a little bit off topic today, but not really. I'm looking at albums, LPs. Have you ever seen those bowls from melted LPs? I always thought those were pretty cool, but they're kind of expensive, and why would I buy one when I have a whole stack of flat ones and no way to play them? So here we go. We're going to make some bowls out of old LPs, albums, that go on the record player for those of you younger than, I don't know. So first of all, you heat your oven to 220 degrees. And then you get yourself a glass or a metal bowl. Set the LP, the album, on top of that bowl, flat, and put it in the oven for about 10 minutes. I'm going to post a video on this as well. There's a Rachel Ray video of them making these. So that will be on my Jackie's Hand of Horror Facebook page. So 220 degrees, you put the bowl in the oven, and you put the album on top of the bowl, and you leave it there for not very long. Keep an eye on it. Might be just a couple minutes. So watch it, and as soon as it starts to sink into the bowl, you pull it out. I would recommend wearing some oven mitts or some gloves, barbecue gloves, just because the bowl's going to be hot. 220 is not that hot, but you know what I mean. Pull it out, and then with your gloved hands, start pushing the album into the bowl and get it to fold and wrinkle just the way you want it, and take it out, and it's dry. It's already dry. It's cool immediately, and you have instant bowls for popcorn or snacks. Dry things, don't forget there's a little hole in it. I wouldn't put anything wet in there. But dry snacks, chips, there you go. And that's it for the pointer finger, the idea section on Jackie's Hand of Horror. Well, we're back on Jackie's Hand of Horror on our Bad Elvis episode. And for our middle finger today, our interview section is, I have with me Duane Whitker. Is that how you say it?
It is.
You had a funny look on your face. I thought, how did I mispronounce that?
You're fine.
Anyway, he's a crack up. Duane and I met, a couple months ago. We were both guests at an event in Cleveland, Cinema Wasteland.
Yeah, really great show. We actually met at the airport.
Yeah, we did.
We were standing out there waiting for our car.
Uh-huh.
And I was mobbed by all the fans.
Oh, I know.
No. I think somebody did come up when I do that. And that's a great show, by the way, Cinema Wasteland. It's run by a guy named Ken Kish and his wife, Pam, and some great, it's not a huge show, but it's one of my favorite ones because it's very well run, and the people are it's kind of a sophisticated crowd. I love that show. I've done it twice.
It was my first time. I'd never heard of it before, but even though it was a small show, oh man, the love
I thought those people really get that. They get what I do.
No, that's it's probably better for you, even more mainstream. They have just he brings in really interesting guests, and sometimes it doesn't work at all. I know the next one they have coming is it's like gosh, I'm blanking on the name of the movie, but it was some Canadian tax shelter movie, and he's bringing like all these people in, and it may go over great, and it may stiff. I don't know. It's My Bloody Valentine.
Okay. And, well, good for him. I mean, he's got a lot of courage. He's just
no, he doesn't really care. Yeah, he'll just book. He books some sort of obvious people, but not. You look around, and you go, wow, this is an interesting, really different kind of lineup than you would see it in a more mainstream show. So yeah, I love that show.
Well, they kind of spoiled me, so I don't think I can do any more shows.
Yeah, no, that's well, you do the one in Seattle.
Yes,
the Crypticon, which I've never done. I would love to do. That's I've heard that, again, a smaller show.
Yes,
but
real similar in terms of tight family. Feeling.
I'm sure they just haven't been able to get a hold of me for some reason.
I think so, because you'd be great at Crypticon. Yeah. I'll see what I can do.
I'm sure they're trying to track me down as we speak.
Well, let's get on to who are you?
Well, that's a good question. Although we got to back up. It turns out, I just thought this was an odd coincidence. I looked at it. We were born 11 days apart, 150 miles apart in Texas. That's pretty.
Isn't that amazing? Over the whole country, even if we were both born in Texas, 150 miles is a pretty small distance for that state.
Yeah, and it's a very small. And I was born in Abilene, which I didn't even realize until I got my Social Security card. I always thought I was born in Lubbock, but I was actually born in Abilene, and then we moved, to Lubbock when I was maybe 2 or 3 years old. So I don't remember exactly, but I was like, when I got my birth certificate, I was like, what is this Abilene? I didn't even know how to spell it.
Well, it's better than Natchitoches.
Yeah. But to answer your question, I'm an actor. I'm an actor who sometimes writes, sometimes directs, sometimes produces, and I also teach. We're actually doing this interview where I teach an acting class.
It's a very cool space.
It's a great space. It's not my space. I rented it from a guy named Alan Feinstein. He's a really, really cool guy, really great teacher, and was a really interesting actor. Mm-hmm. Kind of retired now.
But what are you most famous for? What would this audience know you for?
I'm most famous by a mile for Pulp Fiction. I play the amiable pawn shop owner.
Yes, Maynard. Right?
Maynard, yeah. And that's kind of the one that's going to stick with me above everything else, probably, no matter what. Which is fine. I've being on these panels, they kind of make you think about this stuff. And I said, if I had to be in a movie the last 30 years, if I could have picked the movie, it would have either been Pulp or Boogie Nights. And so I can't really complain about that. It was really, really helpful. It was kind of that. I remember reading an interview with. I think it was Powers Booth or somebody. He said he'd been in New York for years and never got a job. He finally got 2 lines on a soap opera, and it legitimized his life.
Right.
And this kind, even though I was at the point that I got Pulp, I was making my living as an actor, but just barely. I mean, I had been working a few, and that was kind of the one that kicked it into another gear. And I didn't even really take that much advantage of it. I made my own little movie, which we'll talk about later. But I probably didn't. I'm not a very smart businessman. I'm not saying that out of any pride. It's just true. I don't necessarily do the smart thing. I should have taken advantage of that heat and really went out.
But that's probably. I mean, that's so common amongst creative people.
I guess. I mean, some people have. Most people I know who are really good business people aren't very good actors. There's a few exceptions, but it's the whole, especially now, the whole self promotion, and all this stuff. It's just really, it's kind of irritating to me. I do. Obviously, I'm sitting here talking to you. We're talking, which I guess is some level of self promotion, but I generally don't do it unless I've got something specifically to promote. It just feels creepy to me, and. There's people who spend 90% of their time promoting and 2% of their time becoming better actors or whatever they're doing.
It takes a lot of time to get attention in this world.
There's
so much competition.
I've always just felt that do good work, and that's step one. The cart before the horse to me is it doesn't matter. I have people, when I'm teaching and they're coming to me like, how can I get an agent? How can I, how can I get in this? And it's like, well, become a better actor to start with.
Yeah.
Because you're not good enough. You're not going to, at a callback level, you're not going to book it anyway. So don't worry about that right now. Worry about becoming really good. It's like a musician. I mean, you wouldn't spend 100 hours promoting your record and 0 time actually writing songs and recording. You have to have the product first. And I think this sort of the last couple of generations, at least my experience from teaching, is that they don't really get that. They think it's all about self promotion. It's all about shucking and jiving, which I think there comes a time where you got to do the work. And when they point the camera at your face, you got to deliver. And if you can't do that, then all that's gone to waste.
That's right. Yeah, I kind of liken that to I was a faux painter, did faux finish work as my career, and how I raised my kids. And I saw a lot of bad contractors out there. And I thought, it just seems like it takes a whole hell of a lot more work to promote yourself than it is if you just do a good job and word of mouth.
Sure. Well, no, and that's how, my career is such as it is. I mean, up until this point, I actually have a really great manager now, a guy named Chris Rowe. But up until this point, I've failed miserably with having representation. So a lot of, probably, certainly in the last 15, 20 years, 70% of what I do is people, it's rehires. It's people I worked for before, they know me, or it's people I've worked, friends who I've worked with and stuff like that. It's a lot more common than me going out and reading for something. I just did a movie a couple of weeks ago that was kind of odd because that's exactly what it was. I went out and I read for it and they hired me.
Okay.
It's a movie called The Great Illusion. I don't know that much about it, but I play a corner in it. But I remember when I was doing the job, it was kind of uncomfortable because I didn't know anybody, and I'm used to I've worked with this guy before.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And it's very hard just to come in on a movie cold for a day, and you don't really know anyone. You don't really know who wanted you. Like, did the director really want me, or so you've got. It's kind of an uncomfortable situation, but a lot of like you say, a lot of it's like any other thing. They go, wow, this guy was good. He delivered last time. He was good. He did some interesting stuff, and he they know I'm not going to show up drunk or high, or they know that what they're going to get. There's not going to be any surprises. So sometimes, that'll give you the edge over somebody where they go, well, this guy's really edgy, but he's a junkie.
Yeah, right. Yeah, time is money.
Although a lot of times they continue to hire these people, which is always a friend of mine. We're always baffled. It's like, well, you knew what you were getting into. Why did you do it? Well, he was just such an interesting actor. And I'm like, well, he's not interesting enough to shut your movie down,
Yeah.
If he goes on a drug binge and you're in the middle of the thing, and I've worked with a few people like that. So yeah, it's a weird, it's a weird business. It's like any other. It has connections with anything else. But I'm just a believer in just doing good work, starting with that.
Yeah.
Start with that. You get as good as you can and work at it. That's
Well, you do a lot of things. I mean, you teach.
I teach. I direct. I'm directing another movie, and I like to direct a movie about every 18 years.
Okay.
So I'm a
so
little behind.
how many more you got in you?
I don't want to push it.
Did you start at 18 or did you start at 0?
No, I did a movie. My first feature I wrote and directed was kind of a. We'll talk about Eddie Presley, which is sort of the beginning of the whole that second wave I had. Which was connected to Pulp Fiction in a really direct way. But Eddie Presley was kind of a frustrating thing in some areas because I wrote it and starred it, but I didn't direct it. I didn't have the guy who directed was a guy named Jeff Burr, who I've worked for a bunch of times. Great guy and really good director. But he didn't see a lot of the movie the same way I saw it. So that was frustrating to go, well, that's not how I would have done it, and you have to, so the end result of the movie was not what I thought it was going to be. I always describe it as like a faulted movie, but a really great try. And something like at Wasteland, we were on a panel, and people were getting mad at me. They're like, I love the movie. What are you talking about? Oh. So it connects with some people for sure.
Oh, I really liked it.
But I kind of see what I thought. But anyway, out of that frustration, I did my own movie with a lot of the same actors a couple of years later called Together and Alone, which is about to, the reason I bring it up is that it's about to come out on Blu-ray. In the next couple of months. I haven't been given a date yet, but I'm kind of trying to push it this year.
Okay, good.
And I wrote and directed it, and it's a neat little movie. It ended up being shown. Eddie Presley got programmed at the Cinematheque, at the Egyptian, which is the best thing ever. And the programmer's like, well, what do we want to show with it? And I said, well, I got this little movie, that I did. And he really fell in love with it. So it's actually been programmed there a couple of times now. And it looks like, hopefully, we'll get it programmed there again for the Blu-ray release.
Okay, and it's on Amazon Prime.
Oh, Eddie Presley is.
Yes, Eddie Presley is. Yeah. And I'm looking
but
forward
Together
to
and Alone that's not to any stretch to compare myself with Orson Welles, but he always said that if he could get into heaven based on one movie, he would show him Chimes at Midnight, which is a movie that most people don't know. You would think it would be, and that's my Get Into Heaven movie. It's really rough around the edges, but it's my movie. Like the mistakes, whatever they are, they're my mistakes, and I have, that's as close as I've ever come to doing something exactly like I wanted to. I didn't really have to answer to anyone. My girlfriend was the producer at the time, so I didn't really have to answer. I had to answer to the budget, which was like nothing.
Okay.
But other than that, creatively, it was completely my project, and I've only been in that position that time, except on the movie I'm doing now. So that was kind of cool. But yeah, I used to make this joke. People go, "Where do you do all this different stuff?" And I would just say, "I go where I'm kicked."
Good way to put it.
Yeah, which is a line I stole from Bruce Davis, and then I told him we have the same representation, and I said, I stole your line. I go where I'm kicked. He goes, I don't worry about it. I stole it from Sam Peckinpah.
Oh.
So I was feeling guilty for no reason.
There you go. And it may not have started.
But it's kind of true. I mean, a lot of the stuff that we're talking about would never happen if I hadn't have made it happen. And then that, it's like an object in motion stays in motion kind of idea. Like the universe doesn't really care that you're the one that made the movie. It's like, oh, he made a movie. Well, he's doing nothing. It kind of, once something starts moving, it's much easier to keep it moving.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And
yes,
it's,
I do.
Especially in any of the entertainment. It's been my experience. You get one job and that'll lead to the other, and that leads to the other one. And even though they may not be directly related, it's just like you've got that momentum. And sometimes it'll stop for a while. And it's not fun.
Well, like you said, you touched on something when we were talking before, how Eddie Presley's where you met Quentin Tarantino.
Yeah.
And so when I was watching Eddie Presley, well, first of all, I see Clu Gulager. I'm like, wow, that's pretty cool.
Sure.
I got to meet him a few years ago at a screening of the restoration of Manos, The Hands of Fate, in Hollywood. And I saw him at Cantor's Deli afterwards, and he called me over to his table, and he took my hand like such a gentleman. He says, "Your daddy must be so proud of you," because I did a Q&A. And so then I went back to my table. I said, "What a nice gentleman." And they go, "Don't you know who that is?" So that's my connection to him.
Clue's just I know their whole family. I did, for years and years. I actually met Clue. He saw me in a play a gazillion years ago and stayed afterwards to talk to me. And my cousin used to wait on him at this restaurant. He came up to him and he said, he was waiting on him. He said, "Clue, I think you know my cousin Duane." He says, "Oh, I do. Duane's a great American artist."
Aww. He's a great guy.
But his son, John, very talented director. He directed Feast, which I was co-starring in. And that was a Project Greenlight. In fact, Clue is in that also. And I worked with Clue, another movie we'll talk about that's coming out, Give Till It Hurts. I What else did I do with him? I've probably worked with Clue in the last 20 years more than anyone.
That guy, you look at his IMDb, he is like a working actor.
Well, he basically doesn't work anymore unless it's for John or a friend or something. But he's still, even when I met him, I actually wrote that part for him because I was acquainted with him, and the director knew him better. Jeff knew him better than I did, so I wrote the part for him, and he was just great, the sleazy agent. And later on, he said, that he had never intended to do it. He was going to back out, but somehow his family guilted him because they were living in Oklahoma at the time. They got in a car and drove out. And God, I can't imagine that movie without him being in it. He's just so good in it. But yeah, I'm not even sure how Quentin ended up in Eddie Presley. Several people in the movie. I mean, Jeff was acquainted with him, and several people were acquainted. And we just kind of put out the word, "Hey, you want to come and do a cameo?" And he came down, and because Reservoir Dogs wasn't even out then, I think we were shooting about the same time. Because I know at one point our dailies were running like next door to each other, so we would see, Lawrence Tierney was in both movies, so who was the devil, and so we would see him on both screens in our movie and also Dogs. So, but I'm not 100%. But yeah, that was how I met him. We spent a day together, and I've told the story 1,000 times. Maybe a year or so later, I ran into him at a coffee shop in Hollywood, middle of the night, and we caught up. What are you doing? And I'd just done another movie for Jeff. I remember called Puppet Master 5. So that was the movie I'd done.
Oh, okay.
And he said, yeah. And I looked completely different. I had the long hair and a cowboy hat on, all stuff. I looked long rider's jacket. I looked like a lunatic. And he was like, yeah, I'm doing this movie. You're kind of right for this part. I'll have him bring you in. And that's what.
Wow.
I mean, it was a long, unpleasant process to actually get cast, but that was what got me in the door. So it was a direct link, to Eddie Presley for sure. That's what I was talking about. This, once you get moving, something. I mean, it was just because it's a movie I would have never, had I not met him personally. It's a movie I would have never gotten an opportunity to get in that door with where my career was at that point, where my representation was. They did an article on the Dallas Morning News on Eddie Presley, and they were talking about Clu Gulager and what an interesting guy he was to cast in that part. And they were going through all the people that we used that were really odd choices, and they got to me and they said, "And who would have thought of him at all?" Which was true, because even though I had written the part for myself and I was writing stuff, I knew I could pull off theoretically because it was actually originally a play. It was a one-man show.
Yeah, I saw that. Okay. Oh, I didn't know it was a one-man show.
Yeah, it was a one-man show. Well, I had an opening act, and then I had a waitress come out at one point, but essentially a one-man play, which is kind of the third act of the movie. So I was pretty certain I could pull it off as an actor, but it was kind of the part. If you had submitted that and said, "Here," no agent I ever had would have ever submitted me for that part.
Okay.
Because they went, "Well, that's not Elvis impersonating. That's not going to."
But you did it, and I loved your character.
Yeah, he's again, a really faulted character, but it was kind of really what Eddie Presley was about when I wrote it. It was about my acting career.
Okay.
I was working as a guard, not quite making a living as an actor, and I just wrote it out of frustration. It was kind of a metaphor for my acting career, and I mean, I never went crazy, or it's not that crazy, but that's what it was. It was that and a combination of I'd seen an Elvis impersonator when I was back in Lubbock. I was bartending, and this guy used to come through, and he kind of had this bad Elvis act, and that was his story. He had been a successful guy, and he'd quit everything to be an Elvis impersonator, and his whole family turned on him, his wife divorced him, and he would tell the story every time. It was painful. I don't know if he was. I can't vouch that it was true, but it sure sounded true.
It was his therapy.
Yeah, and I always thought that's a great idea for a play.
Yeah.
And I never, until I got he had a breakdown part, which I had seen a guy break down in a McDonald's on Hollywood Boulevard, and then it kind of clicked. I went, "Oh, that's it." Because just to watch a bad Elvis impersonator for an hour was not really much to it. But if it's a bad Elvis impersonator and something goes horribly wrong on stage, and then we find out this is his first gig after he's been locked up in a nut house for a few years, that's interesting.
It is. Yeah.
So that was once that clicked in, I sat down and wrote the play basically in one night. I was working. In fact, I I was working as a security guard, so I had to go do my rounds and come back.
Oh, that's fine.
So I didn't have the whole night to write it, but that's 90% of what ended up in the play was written that night.
Okay.
Because I had it all there, but I just didn't have that piece. Like, why does this performance matter? And then once I got that, boom, I kind of had to write it.
Yeah.
I try to avoid writing unless I absolutely have to write it, or unless somebody hires me and writes a big check.
Oh, well, that's
which has happened a few times.
Yeah?
Yeah, but not that often, but it hasn't happened recently for sure. But every once in a while they'll wave a little money at me.
So when I'm watching Eddie Presley, of course, I see Quentin Tarantino's face in those scenes where you're in the mental hospital and he's a attendant with the gurney, and then because he's so,
sure.
And then my eyes slip over to the other guy pushing the gurney. I go, no, Bruce Campbell?
Yeah.
How'd you do that?
Yeah, I think Jeff, the same kind of thing. Somebody knew him, and they were like, in fact, I think it was supposed to be Sam Raimi.
Okay.
And Raimi got a better gig. I think he got a Coen Brothers gig or something. I can't remember exactly what it was, but he had Bruce stood in for him. It was it was funny because they actually had a few. If you look on the extras, I give you the disc there. They actually had lines which were funny, and I don't know why, but Jeff Burr in his infinite wisdom decided to cut that stuff out. But it's actually they have it's just a couple of exchanges, but it's funny stuff, and I don't know. That might have been an error in judgment on his part. I don't. If you're listening, Jeff, he would probably agree.
At
I
this
think.
point.
Yeah, because it was just I don't know. Who knows why people
Yeah.
do stuff?
Yeah.
I've done plenty of stupid things in my life, and that would be
that's
one.
a whole nother episode for both of us, right?
Oh, I got a whole chapter.
Oh,
of
you
that.
just gave me an idea.
Stupid stuff I've done.
Stuff. So what are you doing now? What's going on in your life?
I actually have a few things coming up. I just did a movie. The one I was saying I just went out and read for. It's called The Great Illusion. It's kind of a serial killer thing. I don't know that much about it, but it's a real movie. I've got a movie coming out called Give Till It Hurts, which is me and Danny Roebuck and Leslie Easterbrook. I'm actually wearing a Leslie shirt today. And a guy named Glenn Hentz, who's actually one of my students, who miraculously ended up being one of the leads in this thing, just because the director saw him in my class. So let that be a lesson to you. Go to class. And it turned out really well. It's kind of been sitting around for about 3 years. They've had some problems, not creative stuff, just I don't know what all's going on, but it's finally coming out, it looks like. And I've got another movie coming out called Getting Grace, which this is directed by Danny Roebuck, starring Danny Roebuck and me and Dana Ashbrook and an actress named Maddie Dundon, who's amazing. It's about and Marcia Dietline. It's about a girl dying of cancer, but it's sort of a comedy. It's obviously it's a girl dying of cancer, so there's a certain tone to it, but really turned out really, really well. It's a project he had been trying to get made for years and years, and it finally all came together. And we shot that in Pennsylvania almost 2 years ago now. So It had a little theatrical release, did really well, and it's coming out on all of, I don't know the dates, but it's
What's the title of that one?
It's called Getting Grace.
Getting Grace.
Really good money. I don't know. It's kind of hard to describe it. They're kind of selling it as a faith-based movie, which it's really not. Although I don't think they would be offended by that. It just doesn't have the elements that some of those elements that those films generally are required to have. But a family film, a really good Hallmark movie. Maybe I don't really know exactly how to put it in a category. But it's just a good movie. Really proud to be in that one. And Dan pulled off an amazing feat with that thing. What else do I got coming out? Something else. Let me check my notes here. What have I done? Oh, I'm in the new Rob Zombie movie for the horror. I'm in the Devil's Rejects sequel.
Oh, okay.
And I've done a couple of movies with Rob. I did the Tiny Little Thing original, and I did his Halloween 2. And he called me and asked me to be in this. So hopefully I'll make the cut.
Cool.
Yeah, Rob, don't cut me out, man. Because that's obviously good for the convention circuit. I don't know.
Definitely.
I don't do a ton. I don't do as much of it as I would like. But when I do it, even though the Rob Zombie, it's especially Devil's Rejects. I sign a lot of that stuff. People really, that particular movie, the fans are pretty loco about. And they want everybody to sign it, and it's like an all inclusive. They want everybody who had anything to do with that movie to sign it. So, and we talked about Grace, and then like I said, this thing I just did. What else? Give Till It Hurts. Yeah, that's. I guess that's about it. I mean, they're kind of a bunch of stuff stacked up. Yeah, it kind of feels like it's, it's kind of been scattered out over a period, but it all bunches up, and
yes.
And so
then all of a sudden you look like you're just everywhere all the time.
Yeah, no, you look on IMDb right now. It looks like I'm working much more than I am, but I've been really lucky. I mean, it's anybody who's worked. I mean, I've essentially worked pretty consistently in film and TV since 86, 87, something like that.
That's a lot to say.
Yeah, it's pretty fortunate. I mean, I don't say lucky because it wasn't like I was sitting there scratching a lottery card, but I've worked at it, and I've given up a lot. I mean, it's if believe me, if I would have been happy doing anything else, I certainly would. I was thinking that's like the worst cliche when I was starting to like, well, if you could be happy doing something else, do it. I was like, what a stupid thing, but it's kind of true because, unless you end up on a series, you never have any stability. It's not that fun when you're 59. It's when you're 22. Who cares?
Yeah, because you got plenty of time.
Yeah, I'll sleep in my car, which I did.
Yes.
I slept in my car, and I think I'd been in Hollywood 3 months. I was sleeping in my car. And I might have been there a lot longer. I got lucky and got a job. I was working in security for Merv Griffin's company on Graveyard. Then I would go out and I would do plays and audition for stuff during the day. But I was lucky. I didn't even know at the time how lucky I was to get a job like that where I could actually pay my bills and still do everything.
Right? How many people can't?
Yeah,
come to close to that. But you're working it. I mean, you're out there and you're.
Yeah, it's when I look back at all the people that I started with, there's one of my best friends, Danny Roebuck, a lot of this stuff involves him, a lot of these projects. And we met as extras on General Hospital.
Oh, really?
In 1983, I think. I think that year is right. But, and he's done really well. I mean, he's done, he's further up the food chain here than I am. But of all the people, from that period, all those people that I met and worked with and did plays with, there's a couple of them still in the business, but not really. Not what you would think. So just surviving this long, I guess, is something, because there's never been like a 2-year period when I didn't work or anything. I've gone a year a couple of times, but there's never been like this thing where like nobody wants me for 4 years or 5 years. So you have to accept that possibility, because there's periods where just nobody wants to hire you.
Yeah, and as a creative person, you have to diversify, like you're doing with your writing and with the acting workshops and.
Yeah. I actually, when I started teaching, it wasn't even really obviously it's a source of income, but my whole idea when I started teaching at the time, it was one of those few time periods where I really didn't need the money. I was doing fine. I lived very simply, and I was living, my girlfriend had a really good job, and we worked as she produced, and so we didn't really have any money. Like, if I didn't work for 6 months, it wasn't a big deal. She wouldn't have liked it, but it would, we would have still been fine. And that's when I started teaching. So it was more of just like, it wasn't really even about any kind of income or anything. I was just like, I'm curious if I can explain what I'm trying to do, and if I can. And so it was, and my whole idea was, I said, I'm going to try to keep this class a secret, and I've succeeded admirably at that. I've never had more than 10 people in.
Okay.
Like 7's a good number, and I think part of it's just laziness, and part of it's I've never advertised. I just turn on the lights and hope somebody shows up. I don't even this particular space here, which is relatively new to me. I have somebody who runs all the equipment. If he didn't show up, I'd be in deep trouble.
Okay.
I don't even know how to do anything except turn on the lights.
Okay, and unlock the door.
Yeah, that's about it. I can turn the alarm off.
Okay. Oh, well, that's really important. Seriously. I could do a whole episode on alarms. That's one of my paranoias. Alarms going off. I'd be the worst burglar ever.
Thank you.
Thanks, Duane.
So today on Evil Elvis episode on our ring finger, on the things we love, the things that we would bury in the yard and keep forever, the things that we would encase in plastic.
Yes.
Or bronze.
Hoarding in a huge collection.
Oh, yeah. Hoarding in a huge collection. We've seen that show. Well, I have. not too many episodes. It's so disturbing. But on Things We Love Today, we're talking about Elvis, what we love about Elvis. And I do have a story here. Gosh, let's see. How is this going to go? I had friends. Well, we all had friends in high school, hopefully. But two of my friends were John Sloan and Betty Weimer. Betty was my best friend, and John was the AD guy in theater arts. And I was the girl you can drag off stage with a hook, And we were friends. I actually used to give him girl advice back in 1976. So we graduate high school. We all remained friends. Everybody gets married. Everybody gets divorced. But John, he went through a hard time during some of those years where he had cancer and he almost died. And he was married through that process. And he was married for 20 years, but after that process, he decided to kind of do a re-celebration of life and decided to have a remarriage, like a reaffirmation of their marriage in Las Vegas. And he invited old friends, and that included me and my friend Betty, my best friend. And so he was going to do it in a white trash way, and an Elvis wedding in the old part of town in Las Vegas. I'd never been to Las Vegas. I've never been an Elvis fan, but I wanted to honor my friend. And he was doing a white trash wedding, and the requirements were really pretty simple, was to dress white trash for this wedding. So I went to Goodwill, and I took very careful care to buy the right outfit, which I did. And no, I don't have a picture to share, and I won't describe it, but it was totally white trash. And Betty did the same thing. She actually brought her Star Trek uniform. I don't think she wore that to the wedding, but she's a Trekkie, so that's a whole nother story. Maybe we should do an episode on that. But so we go to this wedding, and it's in, like I said, the old part of town. There's the Elvis impersonator, and John had rented a room in this kind of theme motel, and it was the Elvis room with a Cadillac bed, and it was really fun. We just had really a great time. The funny thing about that story is that a few more years go along, and he and that wife end up divorced after 20 years. And we'd still been friends, just friends. We'd always been friends. We never dated in high school. But we were talking as he went through his divorce and the changes in his life, and he was redoing his house and furniture, and I had a career in faux finish, and things were slow at that time for me financially as raising my kids as a single mom. So he invited me to come to his house on a working vacation to paint his house and earn some money, which I did. And this was 5 years ago, and 900 miles apart. Actually, like 900 miles. We'll just say 900 miles. So I came out, I painted his house, and lo and behold, we fell in love. So 5 years later, here we are.
Oh, wow.
You know.
So it's a love story.
It's a love story
Yes.
that began with Elvis. Who knew?
Things we know about Elvis. Thank
The
you,
love of
Elvis.
How about you, Nuria? What's your Elvis story?
Well, it's interesting. I'm younger, so I don't know him much. It wasn't live stuff that I saw about him. So in my childhood, I remember seeing his pictures, his movies, and listening to his music. And what caught my attention is, well, to start, he looks like one of my uncles.
Oh,
one of my mother's brothers.
Okay.
So he's handsome. You can
yes.
tell.
Well,
both of them.
Elvis not just
my
you,
uncle.
but everyone I've met in your family are very attractive people. Yes.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Fortunately, we have good features, but
yes, you do.
Going back to Elvis.
Yes.
His eyes are very expressive, and sometimes for me, he looks so gorgeous that he looks even like a woman or something like that. He looks perfect, like porcelain skin and all that. It's very interesting. That catches my attention constantly. His voice is unique, and that's why he was able to have different genres when he was being a singer. For me, he was kind of comparable with the Michael Jackson of his era.
Yes,
because he was also very distinctive in his voice and very diverse in his doing of music. He played instruments, so he didn't only just sing or act.
He had actual talent.
Yes, yeah. You can tell, and I do remember.
Not that singing or acting is an actual talent. Right. Sorry.
Isn't it?
Hold on. Delete.
Yeah. Okay. Going back to Elvis.
Yes. Back to Elvis.
Yes. I do remember my mom saying that he served in war, so I didn't know about that time when I was, as I said, I was a child when she mentioned that, and that also caught my attention because he interrupted his career. But when he came back after serving in war, which is also something that has to be said and appreciated and recognized to him, he boosted up his career. He was even more famous after coming back from war, and it's something that I like. Let's say. It's what I'm bringing for this segment.
He was able to take an interruption in his career and
was
still come
good
back.
Enough, correct.
Yeah. And you get the sense, like I do, that he didn't take that interruption in his career for the attention of it. Although he got lots of attention, but it wasn't.
He made an impact.
Yeah.
In society and in the public.
Yes.
Yeah, that's why I like it. And
that's
I like
great.
him.
I love that. Well, thank you.
Yes. Thank you, Elvis.
And that's it on this section today. So you go. I should have ended it that way. I'll have Aradia end it that way when she does her section. Excellent. Well, normally on Jackie's Hand of Horror, we are now at the Pinky section where Miss Aradia entertains us with some 9-year-old remarks on the subject of the day. In this case, I should have prepped the kid. I turned on the recorder, I asked her what she knew about Elvis, and there was a complete blank. That's it, folks. Well, thank you for joining us once again on Jackie's Hand of Horror. We've had another great episode here with my team, with Nudia.
Hello, everybody.
And myself, and our tech support, Quinn and Natalie, and the rest of the crew at the Revival League podcast.